Your Dynasty regular season is coming to a close. You worked hard all year, entering waivers, making trades, setting lineups just to get to this point. And we hope that all your efforts are rewarded with a great playoff run. However, if it did not, you might as well start planning for next year. Now, we hit on our Dynasty wide receiver ranks on our November 14th show. If you missed it, please go check it out. And we are back tonight to work on our Dynasty running back rankings. Who is being relegated to the dustbin? Who is moving on up? Tonight on the Rod Pod. It's time to pull up a chair and talk some Dynasty football. I am your host, JJ Wenner, and this is the Rider Dynasty Podcast. With me are my co-hosts, Joe Harlow, Jameson, Hutchinson. Now, gentlemen, I took the rankings that you submitted to me and I organized them into some rough tiers. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to go through these tiers and see where we need to input. Now, just to set a couple ground rules, I am going to let the two of you make most of the decisions, and I am only going to jump in if there is a tie or if I have something important to add. Make sense?
Yes.
Works for me. I think we got this handled.
All right. I trust you two implicitly. All right.
That's your spot.
All right. So let's take a look at our first two tiers. You might have to drop the rolling banner to lower everything down, Joe. But we have in our tier one, who was kind of a consensus top five for us, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Breece Hall, Saquon Barkley, and Devon Achane. All right, gentlemen. Is this tier in the right order? And do all of these guys belong in the top tier?
I personally want to condense it a little bit, but that's just my thought process at the moment. I think Bijan, I think both of us would probably agree, would be on tier one, probably the top guy on tier one. The one guy that I would try to honestly remove is Breece Hall. I'm a little lower on him than probably consensus at the moment, but the rest of these guys I think are fine. It's just a matter of how we want to rank them.
All right, so you're a little lower on my boy Breece.
Yes.
Joe.
Yeah, I still have Breece in that tier one, but I think it's probably because I'm a coward and don't want to lose the talent there. But I do. This is the order I do have these guys in, but I also would be fine. I could hear an argument for moving any of these next three out. Saquon Barkley due to age, Breece Hall because of the Jets-ness of everything.
Excuse me, this is a Jets podcast.
I thought it was a Penn State podcast.
Oh, you were right. I apologize.
Hey, Saquon. Move Saquon out. And then Devon Achane, just is it really oh my gosh, words are gone. How consistent can he really be long term? But I think we need to move one of these guys out of here, if not two.
All right, so we agree on Bijan and Jahmyr definitely being in the top tier.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jameson, would you say all three, Breece, Saquon, and Devon Achane, need to go to tier two?
I would just only remove Breece Hall on this. My rankings are going to be a little bit different. I've got Bijan 1. I have Devon Achane for 2. Reason for that, he's got the 5th most receiving touchdowns in the league so far, and he is a running back. That's not including his workload as a runner, so I think that ends up being pretty special there. I think Saquon, he's only 27 years old, and for reference, I'm basically playing Dynasty in a 2-year window, so I think that he can still produce for the next 2 years. And the way he's running right now, I don't think it gets any better or hotter than Saquon Barkley right now. So I'd probably leave him in this tier, and then Jameer Gibbs too. I think he's really exciting as well. I think I just keep the 4 and remove Brees Hall, but that's just how I would roll with it.
Joe, are you saying just move Brees, or should we move Saquon as well?
I think Saquon should stay. Just he's the running back 1 right now. So I think maybe in a vacuum he could be in tier 2 or 1B, whatever you want to call it. But right now, with how he's doing, have to expect he's going to do similar next year. So I'm fine keeping him tier 1.
All right. So looking at tier 1, I know ranking order isn't as important, but mentally, Jameson, do you want me to switch to Achane and Barkley for you?
No, you don't have to do that. I think it's fine where it is. I'm not too picky. I think Devon Achane is a very hot topic for some people. I think some people are totally against him, and some people are very for him. I'm somebody who's on the Achane train. I mean, he's killing it. Last year he was running back 7. That was with multiple games missed, and this year so far he's he was 24 last year, but that was with games missed. This year he's running back 7. And he got Tua back, and I think that changes a lot. Every time Tua's there, it opens up a lot. And with Tyreek Hill getting older, Jalen Waddle, I mean, the offense is running through Jonnu Smith and Devon Achane. So I think Achane's the focal point, and I think he belongs in tier 1. So I'm fine leaving it the way it is. I'm not too worried about rankings, especially with the tear that Saquon Barkley's been on, who I feel like I missed very badly this year, but is what it is.
All right. Well, you break my heart. Hello to Tootsie. Hello to Captain Crunch. Those are the 2 comments I did see. Thank you for saying hello. Captain, I don't know why you hate Brees as well. So let's move on to tier 2, and I can cry some tears. Oh, hey, I didn't even mean that pun. It just happened. So looking at tier 2, we now have James Cook, Kyren Williams, Jonathan Taylor, Kenneth Walker, Josh Jacobs, and Brees Hall. Joe, do all of these guys belong in the same tier?
I don't think Jonathan Taylor does.
Okay.
And Kyren Williams does today, but I think in 4 weeks there's a really good chance he doesn't anymore. Not a really good. I think there's a non-negligible chance he doesn't belong in this tier by the end of the regular season.
Okay, Jameson.
I agree with Jonathan Taylor. He's gotten a little bit of receiving work, but I mean, if he's not getting 20 attempts, the offensive line for the Colts, Anthony Richardson playing well probably is not great for Jonathan Taylor. And then I'm going to disagree with Kyren Williams. We have tried to fade him for like a year and a half, and he still delivers. So the workload there is very hard to ignore. I know this past week, Blake Corum started the first drive for the Rams, and then Kyren Williams got work the rest of the game. I'm still on the Kyren train. I feel differently just because I feel like everybody's trying to predict his demise, and it hasn't happened yet. So I would leave Kyren there, and then the rest of it, I'm not as big a fan of Kenneth Walker as others. I don't think he has lived up to his potential. I think he can be borderline tier 2 or tier 3, but James Cook, Brees Hall, Josh Jacobs, really underrated, but I think the rest of them stay.
Do you know who has the highest PFF rushing grade amongst running backs this year?
Kenneth Walker.
It is.
Is it?
Which was very surprising to me, not going to lie. Number 6 is Chris Rodriguez, by the way.
Very interesting. So the only one I would consider moving is Kyren. I have some of the same concerns that you have, Joe, but I think we can leave him there for now.
Yeah.
And make that adjustment. If we see some snaps shifting, some carries moving, then I think I'd be ready to make that change. But are we good then with Cook, Williams, Walker, Jacobs, and Hall all in the same second tier?
I am. I think a big thing with Williams as well is just the injuries history. He's a small running back. If he didn't have that history, then I wouldn't have, even with this past week, I wouldn't have concerns about him in tier 2 for what it's worth there.
All right. Well,
what do you think, James Cook? and Josh Jacobs with young rookies behind them. Who Marshawn Lloyd hasn't played, but he was the fantasy darling coming into the season. Then,
Well, you know how I feel about Ray Davis. I love him. So, but James Cook has been performing this year. So I don't know. It's hard for me to move Cook out just because that was my preseason belief. And I'm trying not to be a little bit more honest about how I feel about these guys and kind of call out my own prejudice. So I don't know. Where are you, Jameson, with James Cook?
I like him a lot. Somebody who originally, I think it started last year, I was kind of on it. And then going into the season, even if Ray Davis or all the other random running backs that Buffalo has, it still runs through him. So, I mean, last 3 games, he's averaged over 15 points this entire season. He's been awesome, even with Josh Allen, who has the rushing touchdown. So I think he belongs. He's a guy that I initially wasn't really interested in. Seems like every time I watch him, he drops a touchdown pass, which is really frustrating. But overall, I think he belongs, and I think he's probably one of the more underrated Dynasty players at the moment. But that just, I guess, my thought. I think for a lot of people, we always are worried about the person behind them or the split workload or all that stuff, which I get. But at the same time, I think 2 people can eat. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, both of them are getting it done. And just we're always trying to predict their demise. And I just I think more than one person can eat. So James Cook, who's been good, I think he belongs in this tier. Basically, I guess is what I'm saying. Running back renaissance this year, as we've seen.
Yeah, I agree there, and I do think that honestly, it's probably better to have a good running back too these days. Maybe we won't. I don't think we'll ever see a LaDainian Tomlinson season ever again, but I think we'll see a lot of really good seasons. I think Saquon, I guess, but yeah, I think it's better to have a good running back too, someone who a team feels confident. I mean, Bijan Robinson, if he didn't have Tyler Algier, who was solid, who's good enough to get reps and keep Bijan fresh, I think I'd rather have 20 Bijan touches at 90 to 100% versus 30 touches a game with him at 70, 80 than blowing out by the end of the year.
Okay, a little bit of load management, to use an NBA term. Captain says, I don't hate him. He's talking about Brees, obviously. Just know he's banged up, and it would be smart for the Jets to maybe lower his reps, keep them healthy for next year, and see what they got in the back. Oh, I do know. The Jets are always hoping for next year. Do you guys think that Braylon Allen would be a start this week? I have D. Henry on bye. Me too. And solid running backs, Dowdle and Irving. Would want to flex Allen. Any news with his injury? Will they keep him safe on bench for the season? Would you start Braylon Allen? I am terrible for Jets decisions because I am a Jets fan. I would say no, but I don't trust the Jets at all.
I would lean no. Miami's defense has been very good lately, and I do think Brees still suits up. So
I don't think I would unless you're in desperation. I'd rather probably take a chance on say if you got a wide receiver 2 floating around, if you're debating him versus the workload for Braylon Allen. I just Miami's defense is good enough. They got Chop Robinson, another Penn State guy that everybody knows and loves. This is a Penn State podcast as well, but
quite obviously,
yeah. And just the Jets' offensive line, the offensive environment. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is so bad at quarterback that he's got a documentary coming out for him to move on to his next, adventure. So I wouldn't play Braylon Allen unless you had to. We'll just leave it at that.
And Captain Crunch, you see a couple Bucky Irving comments. We will get there. Brandon Keene, yes, this is fantasy exclusive. I think things would be this is a special thing with quarterbacks for me, where I think fantasy rankings for quarterbacks very different than NFL rankings.
Yeah, I think same thing for dynasty rankings, right? I think I'd be much higher on some of the older guys.
Like Henry.
Well, like Derrick Henry, Brandon. I'd be much higher if we were talking about just who is the best running back right now. I think when I look at dynasty rankings, like I used to say a 3-year window, kind of dialing that back to a 2-year window. And I don't know. I get nervous about the older running backs.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about them in a minute. And before we get to tier 3, Jameson, let's get in a word from our sponsors. Finish your season up strong with IDP Plus. Visit idpplus.com and for a limited time, get 20% off any subscription with the promo code PROPS. We are so much more than just IDP. Sign up, get access to our tools, data, and articles, and don't miss out on our subscriber Discord where our best and brightest and Sean are helping with waivers, lineups, and trades every single day. So go to IDP Plus and finish your march to the championship today. All right, gentlemen. Let's scroll over a little bit. Let me move Jonathan Taylor on down, and let's take a look at our next 2 tiers. All right, so in tier 3, based upon our rankings, we had Jonathan Brooks, Isaiah Pacheco, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, and Jonathan Taylor. Jameson, do you want to take a stab at these first? What do you think?
I think you will see the rise of Isaiah Pacheco, and I'm somebody who's really high on him. The way he finished last year, the way that he started this year before he got hurt, he's going to be kind of slow coming off this injury, but I think especially when the Chiefs go into the playoffs, they're going to lean on him. I would move Isaiah Pacheco up personally, but I understand if you wanted to keep him here. And then the other guys, it's basically just an injury and age thing with Derrick Henry. He's going to turn 31 next month. So that's pretty old for a dynasty running back unless you are a contender. Like, you probably don't want to be holding Derrick Henry because if he gets hurt, you basically lose all your value. And we'll talk about Christian McCaffrey. I'm still in on him. I think he can come back next year and have a good year, but I think some people might think he's toast and ready to, escape holding the bag if they are. So I'm interested to hear what Joe has to say about those two specifically, but Isaiah Pacheco is a guy I'm high on, so I'd be open to moving him up.
Pacheco's one of those who, I hate watching him play. I don't have him personally as a top 20 NFL running back, but fantasy wise, definitely, if he wasn't hurt, he'd be in tier 2. His chaotic style is perfect. I don't like personally, but it works perfectly with the Chiefs and with the Mahomes read system. So I just kind of want to see what he looks like before moving him into tier 2, which I think is totally reasonable. But he probably would have been there.
I'm very high on Pacheco. He's one of those. I think as we talk about the demise of the Chiefs at 11-1 and how they're barely getting by in all their games, the fact that they lost their RB1 and wide receiver 1 and now are 11-1, it says a lot. And they're getting Pacheco back, and Hollywood Brown is coming back.
Is he?
That's what they said. You told me he was going to be out for the whole year. I cut him in the Scott Fish Bowl.
Oof.
Well, I'm out of the Scott Fish Bowl now anyway, so I guess I didn't need to hold him. But yeah, so they might be getting both of them back for the playoffs, which would be nice. So
the 2 older running backs, I think that's who Jameson you said you wanted to hear my opinion on.
Yeah.
It's just an age and injury thing, really. If you're a contender, easily tier 2 type plays, but yeah, I think this is just a weird tier of young guys who are injured, a former superstar who just super inconsistent in Jonathan Taylor, and then these 2 old guys who I would still buy them as a contender for sure, but yeah, if I'm 3-9 right now, I want to sell them yesterday. So
where do we think Christian McCaffrey plays next year?
San Francisco.
San Francisco. Any concerns over how old San Francisco is getting and how the injuries are piling up?
Yes, but I don't think they'll care, and I think they'll just run it back.
Yeah, I think the offense will probably be better. They'll probably bring in some reinforcements for the offensive line. Brock Purdy will get paid. Brandon Ayuk will be back. Just a lot of the offense before everything fell apart was just red zone, and obviously a lot of the red zone stuff was Christian McCaffrey. So when he wasn't there, that means the offense kind of fell apart in the red zone. But I just he gets the whole offseason to get healthy. I think they'll. It's just they've had the Super Bowl hangover. They've played a ton of games the last couple of years, making deep runs in the playoffs. Just seems like bad injury luck, which seems to happen to San Francisco every couple of years. But I still think you can get 2 good years out of Christian McCaffrey. So I just I'm higher than him, but I understand people's frustrations and being scared of him. And he's like talking just fantasy, like for regular redraft. He's probably going to go in the 3rd round next year. And if you drafted him in the 3rd round and he hits like he normally would, I mean that's a steal.
Yeah.
So I just
And in the second round, it's a steal.
yeah. So I just that's kind of where I'm coming from on that. I'm still in on Christian McCaffrey.
I'm on both of them too. I just think for Dynasty, I don't really know how to rank guys like that.
So would you trade Jonathan Brooks for Christian McCaffrey?
It fully depends on my build.
I don't think I would. I think I would stick with Christian McCaffrey.
So should Jonathan Brooks be in this tier?
I'm very willing to push him down.
I think this is a tough one because there's a couple other names who I think are missing from this tier and actually aren't even in the next tier that I think belong with Brooks. I almost think we should make a tier 3.5, have Brooks and a couple other guys in there.
All right. So I'm going to move Brooks out of this tier.
Yep.
This is a show me league, and I would like to see him show me anything before I start putting him up. It seems weird to say Pacheco, McCaffrey, Henry, Taylor, Brooks.
Yeah.
Especially his run out this year so far with being injured. Like, I saw the plays that he made last week when he was on the field. He looks really good. Very explosive. Look, everything that we wanted from Texas, but they just paid Chuba Hubbard. He's going to be in the time committee. Like, I'd like to see it before I have him next to Christian McCaffrey. So maybe that's discriminating on the young guy, but at the same time, it's just how it's going to be. We got some other players in these tiers coming up that I think I'd rather be holding right now.
All right. So let's take a look at tier 4.
This is where it's weird. Oh, we also got
this is definitely where this starts getting weird. All right. Just finished the last video. Great content. You're also low on Achan. Is Mostert a sleeping giant who hasn't been fully healthy? Personally, I love Mostert. I loved Mostert last year. I think that might have been an aberration. It was a healthy year for a running back who hasn't been able to put a lot of healthy seasons together. I don't know. I don't think Mostert will ever come close to what he did last year.
Mostert's he's also 32 years old. So, and they also have Jalen Wright, who they just drafted this year. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is, I don't know his contract, but I mean, if this might be the end for Mostert, I don't think it's, I think he ran very hot last year. And Miami's offense was a lot better environment. Offensive line was a lot better. Touchdowns. I think that we've seen the best of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. And I think he could still have a couple games if he's healthy for the back end. I don't think it would be really at the detriment of Achan.
Now, Mr. Bakes-a-Lot, did you capitalize Giant to infer he might go to the Giants?
Ooh.
Throw in subs. All right, gentlemen, let's take a look at tier 4. Now, like you said, Joe, this is where it starts getting a little bit weird. All right, I'll put tier 5 in there too. We have Joe Mixon, Travis Etienne, David Montgomery, Alvin Kamara, Brian Robinson, and Jonathan Brooks. What do we think? Jameson?
Joe Mixon needs to move up. He's been on a tear this year. I'm going to pray to God that the Texans' offense gets better next year because I mean, what Joe Mixon's doing behind the offensive line that sucks. Behind C.J. Stroud, who has been quarterback 33 in football, he has not been good this year at all. I think Joe Mixon's been really good. David Montgomery is probably the most underappreciated running back in football. I would rank him higher. There's no guy who can guarantee get you 10 points just waking up with the possibility of 20 to 25 in a timeshare. So I would move him up. I would send Travis Etienne to prison. He sucks. We're done. And then Alvin Kamara, he will be 30 this summer. So he ends up in this weird. This year, he's on pace to get his first 1,000-yard rushing year ever in the league. He's never rushed for 1,000 yards in a season, and he's on pace to do it this year. So he is in that weird tier. I'd probably move him up if the rest of those guys, and then I think the rest of it stays. I'd be open to move.
Wait, hold on. Slow down.
Yep.
So you said Joe Mixon moves up to tier 3.
Yep.
You said David Montgomery moves up.
Yep.
And Alvin Kamara moves up.
Yep. So.
Okay. All right. Give you my Denzel. Joe, what do we think about Mixon, Montgomery, and Kamara moving up to tier 3?
I don't agree with that. I think they stay here, but I will say I think Etienne and Robinson should move out. I think there's a clear difference between Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, and Joe Mixon, Monty, and Kamara.
So do Montgomery, Kamara, and Mixon belong in their own tier?
That's tough because then you have Jonathan Brooks still. There's a couple other younger running backs I think I still personally have above those 3. But yeah.
I mean, Joe Mixon currently is running back 6. He finished running back 6 last year, finished running back 10 the year before, and then 2021 he was running back 4. So it's I think Joe Mixon ends up in the same tier as the other guys. He's only 28 years old, so he's a little bit younger than McCaffrey and Derrick Henry.
He's also not nearly as dynamic of a player as they are, and I don't think he's going to age nearly as well as they do.
Fantasy stuff's still pretty good, but that's up to you. If you want to leave, if you want to make your own tier for Montgomery and Kamara, that's fine. But I think Joe Mixon has been good enough to move up.
So this is a disagreement. I'm going to have to weigh in.
Yes.
And Jameson, I think you know what I'm going to say.
Well, you're always going to be against me, so.
and I am completely behind you, my brother. But yeah, I'm going to leave Mixon here.
Criminal.
So I'm curious, Jameson, why you feel that way about Mixon, but not Kamara, who's running back 3 on the year.
Oh, I would move both of them up. That's what.
My bad.
That's what. If you want to leave the tier here, that's fine. But if you're going to bring Mixon up, if it's an age discussion, I think you got to move Kamara up. So,
that's
if you want to leave David Montgomery in his own tier, if you don't want to compare him to Christian McCaffrey, I think that's fine. I was not in the thought process of making a tier for these guys. I was thinking moving up or down. But Joe Mixon, and I'm not even a Joe Mixon dude. I thought he looked slow last year, but what he's doing just kind of hard to ignore. And I think that production, he's still running back 1 for any team. He's been on a tear this year. He's getting 15 points waking up. So, and then you got Derrick Henry, who is 31, and Christian McCaffrey, who's been injury ridden, where Joe Mixon is healthy and a top 10 running back. It's just kind of my thought process there.
That's fair. And I guess there isn't really a secondary running back for either of those. Him or Kamara.
It's the very goofy tier where we try to balance age, production, also predict when they fall off, and then if they have somebody the team build, is the team going to fall apart? That's ends up being very goofy. And then the only thing left on this tier, maybe I'm just Jonathan Brooks. I see Bucky Irving, a guy I'd rather have. Chase Brown is not the next tier, but like I would consider those guys before Jonathan Brooks. But we can get to that when we get to there.
I think we should get to it now, if that's okay with
That'll work.
JJ.
That'll work.
Let's do it. But before we do, I'm switching. I'm moving, mixing up.
I think if you move Mixon, you have to move Kamara.
And Kamara is moving up, leaving Demont by himself in tier 4.
All right. So that'll work.
All
I think
so. For now, we have moved Pacheco, McCaffrey, Henry, Taylor, Mixon, Kamara are all in tier 3. Monty is alone for now in tier 4 until I scroll to the right and we bump some guys up. Am I on the right track?
You are on the right track. I'm going to let Joe because I want to get to that tier 2 because I think there's some names. I just before we move on, we've moved Jonathan Brooks down twice, and I just want to talk about the thought process there.
Sure.
We did not think Chuba Hubbard was going to be as good as he has been this year. We thought he was just going to be a name waiting for Jonathan Brooks, even if Jonathan Brooks is like awesome, even if they turned into D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart. Like they had their own version. If you want to compare them to Montgomery or Jahmyr Gibbs, like that version. But even if Brooks is good, Chuba Hubbard, we did not expect to be as good as he has. We did not expect him to get extended. We thought that Jonathan Brooks would come in and then end up being like the alpha male, and it just hasn't ran that way. Can he move up later on? Sure, but I just, at this point, even with the way the old guys have hit this year, I'd rather just see it before I put him in the same tier as Joe Mixon, David Montgomery, that sort of thing. So
I'm definitely on that same page. Once the rookie hype has worn off of these guys, which is usually week 2 or 3 for me, I need to see something before I throw respect on a guy. I think Jonathan Brooks could easily move up with a strong finish to the year, but I'm going to need to see something first.
Yeah, it's been a rough run out for him, even if though he looked good last week and, Bryce Young's looking better, all that stuff. But, he got ranked really high in Dynasty. Everybody was really pumped for him. Looked good in college. I know he was hurt, but just picking him over some of these older running backs, the way that they've hit this year is just kind of hard to stomach. So not trying to disrespect
the way
them.
I see it is I tend to go younger at running back. I think you tend to be more of that win now style where, at least for these rankings, I think more of the startup where I tend to go more of the competitive rebuild way out of the gate. It's just my strategy. So that's why I have like Jonathan Brooks is the top 12 dynasty running back for me. A couple other names will hit. I have higher than Kamara, Mixon, Monty, some of the other guys, but the way you're seeing it, I think is totally reasonable. It's just the styles makes fight sort of deal.
Yeah, I don't think I would be this open to it if the running backs, like the old guys, not only have they hit, like they are demolishing this year. That is the difference between like even if the old guys were just like playing the hits. I mean, Saquon, an older running back, destroying the world. Like Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara's having like his best year ever, and I thought he was going to suck. So it's like that's kind of my thought process there, and I try to emphasize that. I know it's hard when we're ranking and discriminating against the young people and all that. Like, I just think the running backs, the old guys who we tried to write off this year, have been so good that it's just really hard to ignore. So, just my thought process there.
This is weird for me that you're calling Joe Mixon an old guy when he's younger than me by 4 days.
No, it's tough.
This is weird to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm older than Derrick Henry, but I mean, I think he's been in the league longer than I've been watching football. So it's like, makes it tough.
Yeah, I hate you both. I think I'm older than most coaches, so you can go, you know what.
No, older than North Carolina's potential new head coach, Bill Belichick.
Oh, boy. Yeah, good luck recruiting, pal. Good luck.
Well, it's because his girlfriend goes there.
Oh, no.
No, I saw that on the internet. I did not come up with that, but I saw it and made me laugh. I forgot who wrote that. All right.
Let's do some comments.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Bakes a lot. The Dolphins have a lot of respect for Mostert. I believe you. I believe they will do right by him and give him some volume. I don't know if they're going to take away Achane volume, which is so dynamic this year, as Jameson said, with Tua, to give it to Mostert. Now, maybe they're going to develop that. Hopefully they can play in some colder weather and show up. And maybe he can be that grit.
I
I don't
think
know.
he's worth a grab in a redraft league if you're making in the playoffs already,
Oh.
just in case. But dynasty wise, it's probably done. Unfortunately,
Okay.
we have
You
a
have some more.
comment
Oh,
about a rookie who for a
uh-oh.
prospect. Let's hold off on that one.
Okay.
Comment from Captain Crunch. He said Jonathan Taylor. He meant Brooks, but stepped up and yeah. I still feel very confident that Jonathan Brooks takes over the lead role some point next year. I think it's very much the Panthers have to. They did right. They we drafted this guy and paid him, giving kind of just locker room. Really, they need to pay someone.
And we know that he will not be explosive until the middle of next year. It's a year off, right? Like it takes time. It takes time to recover.
Captain Crunch weighing in. Bucky and Dowdle in tier 4 for him. David Lewis talking Tyrone Tracy and Chase Brown. I think all names we'll get to.
Yeah, we're going to get there.
We have a couple of redraft questions too.
Okay.
We have a lot of interaction in the show. Thank you guys. From Skeeter,
awesome.
Adam Thielen or Dontavian Wicks, half PPR. I'm assuming that's a redraft.
Adam Thielen, all day, every day.
Is Romeo Dobbs isn't playing, correct? Or is he active?
He's out.
He's out?
Yep. I would take Adam Thielen. But
100%. We just talked about him on the All Out Blitz podcast that should have published last night. If you want to take a listen, Doug Orth and I had about a 15-minute conversation about Adam Thielen.
Wow. I'd roll with Wicks here just for the upside shot, but
what?
Yeah, if Dobbs out, if he was active, it's pretty easily Thielen. But
if Wicks could catch, maybe, but Thielen's going to get peppered with
horse hands and had 160 a couple weeks ago. So
yeah, I know that's true.
Solid. Then we have IDP wise,
Skeeter. I like Skeeter.
Yeah. Akeem Davis Gaither taking over for my fellow Wyoming Cowboy, great Logan Wilson. Yeah, I think Davis Gaither he will have that role while Wilson's out, especially with how bad Jermaine Pratt's been on the field. I think his fantasy numbers have been fine, but he's been awful. So I don't think they really have anyone else. And Davis Gaither has been the team leader in there for a while. I think he was in the same draft class as Logan Wilson, actually. Yeah. If I'm remembering correctly. Or maybe that was Pratt. Anyway.
Just hope they can tackle, because this Bengals team couldn't tackle anybody.
Nope.
So, terrible.
I completely agree here at this point.
You know, that was a big thing we talked about this offseason. Too many wide receivers. Like how – and it's great for a team to be able to interchange players.
It's great for the Packers. Sucks for fantasy.
Yeah, 100% agree. 100% agree. There is nothing worse that I want to hear an announcer say than he's completed passes to 10 different receivers today.
Yeah.
Whoop-de-doo.
And Captain Crunch, your most recent comment, we will get to in a bit.
All right. Well, let's finish up after a commercial break. And it is football season, and that means a trip to see your favorite team on the road. Well, Expedia gives you the best prices when traveling, and we are thrilled for our partnership with them. Do you need a flight to Denver, rent a car in Miami, or a hotel in San Francisco? Well, go to idpplus.com/Expedia and build the best package to travel to the big game. All right, gentlemen, it is time for the down and dirty. Let's figure out the rest of these rankings and who's moving up and who's moving down. So right now we have Monty alone in tier 4. Tier 5 is Ramondre, Swift, Pollard, Bucky, Rashad White, Brian Robinson, Etienne, and Brooks. Jameson, pick one of those players who you want to move up.
I'm a little iffy on it, but Bucky Irving over the last couple weeks has looked really good. I'm worried that this might be. I don't want to compare him to Travis Etienne like a flash in the pan production, but I mean Rashad White cannot run the football. I don't know if anybody's watched him to try to run in between the tackles, and it is. I think my 7-year-old would have more success. He's a great pass down back, but Bucky Irving, what he's doing is really good. Sean Tucker coming out of Syracuse, he's been fine. Don't think he's great, but Bucky Irving, like the way he's played the last couple weeks, if that's what sticks around for the Buccaneers, I think he deserves to move up. So he would be my one guy. Young, exciting, has a lot of good production, like I said, and I think he could end up being like a league winner for people just in regular redraft this year as the Raiders this week, so should go off yet again. So I think Bucky Irving would be a guy.
Joe, do you think our favorite Buccaneer should move up to tier 4? So I'm going to kick myself.
Move him to tier 8 after that joke. Gosh.
I'm sorry.
No,
that
I
was
think
my
he
fault.
I think he absolutely should.
All right. So Bucky's moving up.
Yeah. Nothing to add to what Jameson said there.
Do you have anybody else, Joe, who you think should move up into tier 4?
Yes. From tier 5, we've had Jonathan Brooks. I still would. I don't know what. We've had discussions about him, but Ramondre Stevenson and Najee Harris, I would also move up. And then Tyrone Tracy as well.
All right. So Ramondre, Tyrone Tracy, and Najee Harris, you would move up into tier 4 with Bucky and Monty.
Yeah. Probably Chase Brown. I assume Jameson would say Chase Brown would be in the same tier as Tracy Irving, if not a little higher. Yep. But that's a point, even though I don't love the player, I would concede. Then Jonathan Brooks for me. But
all right. JMO, where are you?
I think I'm pretty settled on this tier. Chase Brown, he's another guy kind of like Bucky Irving. Like the Bengals have nobody else to play him with. I know everybody loves Khalil Herbert, but he just hasn't been it. He's more of a darling than he is a real life prophecy. But Chase Brown, like if they brought somebody in, I still think Bengals offense. He's proven he's got a really good rest of season schedule, and I think he ends up being the main back. We saw it at Illinois. He could handle 3-down workload. He's done it here without any competition. Even if they brought in somebody else or drafted somebody, I still think he'd be the main man as long as they don't bring the kid from Boise State. So Chase Brown belongs. Najee, I can't ignore what he's done. I mean, I've been the biggest Najee Harris hater of all time, but Steelers are good. The offense looks good. Maybe Arthur Smith didn't deserve all the flack that he got, the way that Russ is cooking right now. Ramondre Stevenson is just a guy, but I think he belongs with his workload. We both like Drake May. I think that the Patriots will probably be on the upswing, and then everything else I think ends up being fine. Tyrone Tracy is exciting too. If the Giants can, get an offense of any sort, any offensive line,
Big
quarterback maybe. We'll see, but he's exciting enough that I think he belongs to.
All right. So are we leaving this tier as Monty Irving, Chase Brown, Ramondre, Tracy, Harrison, Brooks? Any objections, gentlemen?
I don't think so.
No. The one other name, just Tony Pollard. What do we think there?
Now, I have to say I have Tony Pollard in one of my bigger dynasty leagues, and he has been a pain in my ass this year. And I have a very hard time when a player, like when I need to put somebody in and they're injured, God, does that piss me off. Right. And and I don't mean that in a bad way. Like I'm just saying, psychologically, it's the pain point of being a manager, right? When you have a guy who's consistently injured, like in and out of lineups, it becomes hard. You're welcome, Captain, to, I don't know, have positive feelings about them, which is somebody who you now have to they're always my trade targets, right? Who am I going to go after? I want somebody who was pissed off their manager a lot that year. So if you're in that league, send me a cheap offer for Pollard and you might get him.
I struggle with Pollard too. Like he's been good. Like his big games have when Tajay Spears is out. Another guy who I feel like I whiffed on pretty bad. I would leave Pollard here. The only other guy that I would bring up is Brian Robinson. Like I think he probably stays in tier 5, but he's looked really good this year. Austin Eckler will probably. I mean, I don't expect him to be around. They have Rodriguez. They have McNichols, but Brian Robinson has quietly been really good. He's attached to a good quarterback. Seems like things are finally turning around for the Commanders. So that's. I think I'd leave him there, but I think it's open to discussion. Like Tony Pollard is just, if everybody on Earth is wiped away and he's left, like he's fine, but he's not somebody that I'm, just excited to. I just traded for him too in redraft, so it's like, I don't know, just a volume guy. I don't think he's got what he did when he was in Dallas.
Now,
I don't
is
think
there?
he was ever that good either. I've always been a massive Tony Pollard hater, and yeah, I just wanted to test there.
Man,
Brian
Pollard for one
Robinson
season
is-
kicked ass. Just saying.
Huh?
For the 1 year, Tony
Yeah.
Pollard kicked ass. But it
That's
was
'cause
kind of like
Take
the DeMarco Murray year in Dallas. Like it just seems like these running backs in Dallas have one like awesome year, and then that's about it outside of Zeke. But yeah, it just
Amen, David.
yeah.
See, I don't like Brian Robinson. I don't think he's very good. I think he's the most average to slightly below average back in the league. Every time I watch him, I think he's super uninspiring, and super replaceable.
I'm not gonna lie. Brian Robinson is kind of like khakis, though. Like I get it. He's not exciting. He's not fun. He's not hip. But a little bit like Najee, he
That's
just
a
gets
more-
it done. He
Yeah.
just gets it done. You're not gonna like it, right? It's
I
like
don't
being
know.
married to me. You're not gonna be happy, but you're gonna pay your bills, and we're gonna be all right. Is that a bad example? Hope my wife doesn't watch this.
He's
Yeah.
a guy that gets 15 touches, and it's probably not going to be pretty. But if you need like a good RB2, like that's
But isn't
he's
that
more-
where we are? We're in RB2 territory.
Yeah, he's just like Najee Harris, but I mean Najee Harris is in a contract year. So if this was any other year for
I don't think
Najee,
he's close to the player Najee is.
man, Najee, ugh.
Like,
That's
I
that's a
really
different
don't.
fight.
And maybe this is me having the where I rank them NFL wise bleeding into fantasy, but yep, I don't know.
Now,
The one other name to bring up is James Conner, by the way.
F. James Conner. So, you know my feelings.
Yeah,
He just got extended.
Whatever. Listen, I won't argue. I have personal things, but before we get to Connor, un momento, por favor. Do you have any issue with 7 people being in one tier? Is that too big of a tier?
No.
not too much. I think David Montgomery's kind of weird because I don't want to necessarily put him up a tier, but I think he's. I mean, Bucky and Chase Brown are very exciting, but like David Montgomery, I think is better than them at the moment, and probably could be long term if Bucky and Chase don't totally hit. Like I think David Montgomery is much better than Ramondre, Najee, but at the same time, do you want to move him up? Not really. Like we just had this discussion, so I think the tier's fine. It's got a good mix of everybody.
Yeah.
All right. So now looking at tier 5, we have Swift, Pollard, White, Robinson, and Etienne. Oh, woof.
Weird group.
That is a strange group. Are we happy with all of them being in tier 5, Jameson?
No. I want Rashad White and Travis Etienne escorted off the property. I think Rashad White will be kind of done after this year. Not like as far as like a fantasy person that you can rely on. Like I think Bucky's going to take over that backfield. And then Travis Etienne has stunk for like a year and a half. He had a really good
He was never
run for
good.
like he had the first 6 or 7 games, I think it was last year. And then he totally fell off a cliff when times got tough. And this year he's been an abomination. And I just, I don't think they belong in that tier. So
I'm with you. I think Rashad White's a great NFL running back too, but nothing more than that,
He's a
unless he's on like an O line, like the best the Lions have.
he's a pass catching specialist. He is a terrible runner of the football.
Mm-hmm.
He is god awful if you watch him, and he
Yeah.
just like maybe a third down back if you are in 3rd and 15 and need the dump off. He's great for it. But as
Mm-hmm.
far as like an RB1, I mean, it's been a year and a half. We watched him run into an offensive line and get 1 yard or 0 yards. So I don't think he belongs. But this tier coming up gets a little more exciting. It's a little goofy, but
Yeah.
Well, sticking with tier 5, is there anybody who we should move up into it?
I think
Joe?
we have to move James Conner up.
I would say so. Is that Tajay Spears underneath of him?
That is.
Okay, I don't want to move him up. I was just asking. I would say possibly Chuba Hubbard. If it's a little goofy.
I don't think
The only
it's
other
crazy.
Go ahead.
You don't
I
think
think
it's crazy? Why, Joe?
The Panthers' line for run blocking is solid, especially in the interior. And Hubbard's been good. And as much as I do love the talent of Jonathan Brooks, if he goes out and blows his ACL again or just never is himself again, Hubbard did just sign a 4-year deal.
I think that's fair, moving him up into that range. Anybody else that we see in tier 6 who should bump up?
Aaron Jones?
man, he's
I don't know.
that is very tough. I would rather have James Conner over him by like a country mile. It's kind of
Are we happy with Swift?
That was
tier
I would
5?
say I'd rather have Aaron Jones than DeAndre Swift though.
Yeah, because I just started to do that. I started to go, would I want Jones over Pollard, Robinson? No. Connor, no. Hubbard, no. Swift? I am not a Swift fan.
Swift is you're not a Swiftie.
No, I do not want to call that down on my head. All hail the queen.
Hear you. I don't know. I think fantasy wise, he has to stay in tier 5. The Bears can't get out of this contract for at least another year. I love Roshan Johnson, but he's not going to take over the lead role. He's going to get touches, and he does have those 20-point games randomly in his back pocket. But God, he's such a pain in the ass.
You ain't lying. So, do we move Aaron Jones up?
I'm responding to you in the chat.
Say it again.
Mr. Bakes a Lot asked for a follow-up, and I'm just said I'm going to respond to him in the chat.
Got you. All right. So Aaron Jones stays where he is, or goes
I'd
to
say.
tier. Yeah, you'd say yes. Stays where he
Yeah.
is. All right. So are we moving on to tier 6? We're kind of happy with tier 5.
Yeah, I think we're good with tier 5. I don't like Swift either, but at the same time, he's a body that is getting the football. Like Roshan Johnson, I liked him a lot. He's goal line back at the moment. Nothing more, nothing less, and that's.
I mean, we are at running back 27.
Yeah.
So end of RB2s onto RB3s.
Yeah. So, yeah, we can move on to the last tier, and then we can talk about some other guys off the grid. I know there's a question about Guerrero. We'll talk about him in a minute because I think he needs to be talked about. But we'll get to this last tier here.
All right. So looking at this last tier then, Jones, Benson, White, Etienne, Bigsby, Javonte, Jalen Warren, Charbonnet, and Spears. I will say somebody I was high on and I am out on is Javonte Williams.
That knee injury just...
It's over. It's over, Johnny. It's over. Sorry to quote First Blood. You guys don't know that movie. I hate you both. Hey, old people. I quoted one of our movies. Do we think Javonte belongs here? I mean, all he does is pass block. His running is horrid.
I don't I don't like him. I don't have any of them, so I'm fine without him. I think there's a couple running backs in this tier that are might hang around, but just as far as like actual fantasy value, where you would actually think about starting them, I just think are kind of done so. So
Yeah.
without like a big injury, like Tajay Spears, I liked him a lot. I know he doesn't have any ACLs, but I think that ship has sailed. Like he hasn't ate into Tony Pollard's workload at all. Like he hasn't been very efficient. Um, let's see, Trey
Both
Benson,
Jaguars running backs are next to each other right now.
and I don't think Tank Bigsby doesn't have the receiving pedigree to do anything. Like he's had some moments this year. About to get a new hall of coaches next year. Doug Peterson will be gone, so wouldn't be surprised if they just draft somebody. I don't see him becoming a guy that'll be worthwhile outside of like maybe injury. Uh, really gets in this like backup tier. Like Warren and Charbonnet are great holds. Trey Benson, I know the beginning of the year didn't look so good, but the last couple weeks when he's came in, he's kind of had a little bit of juice. I know they just extended James Conner, but Trey Benson looked a lot better than he did at the beginning of the year, and then the rest of it is just Rashad White and Aaron Jones.
So who are we said maybe Spears and Javonte out? Anybody else you want to move out, Joe? Or let's stick with moving out.
I think we can move Charbonnet out. Just the Ken Walker of it. But I also wouldn't fight against keeping him in here. I think there's a couple other names we need to mention to bring up, though.
So Jones, Benson, White, Etienne, Bigsby, and Warren were all fine with.
Yeah, I don't
Sure.
have for or against it. I think there's some other guys I think I'd probably bring up that we could talk about here in a minute.
Yeah.
All right. So if that's everybody moving up, who do you want to move in?
I think we need to talk about J.K. Dobbins and Rico Dowdle.
Okay, go ahead. You can do that.
Oh, I don't really want to. Rico Dowdle is there. I don't think he's good at all. I don't think he's going to be the lead back next year, but he is right now. And Dallas does weird stuff. Apparently Mike McCarthy's going to get extended, so I don't freaking know. J.K. Dobbins is a tough one. Based off how he played this year, you could make an argument for tier 4, but he's hurt again. So what are we doing there?
I'm not in on either. I don't think Dowdle has done enough. But like you said, I don't know what the Cowboys are going to do. But I don't know if I care what the Cowboys are going to do.
Yeah.
Like we're not talking about the Cowboys of 5 years ago with whichever running back gets behind that line is going to dominate.
Mm-hmm.
So, and J.K. Dobbins, I just don't trust.
I think he had a lot of empty calories this year too.
Some of his biggest runs were terrible defensive plays.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Jameson, where are you?
To be fair, I think a lot of
Yeah.
big runs are because of bad defense. But go ahead.
I think Dobbins, I just don't want any part of. And then Dowdle is just a guy eating touches and won't be a focal point next year. It might be the RB2 or RB3, but I mean, his competition is Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook. I mean, if he can't beat those two out, and it's taken him 2/3 of the season, like this past week, he finally had a good game. Like this should have been happening week 1, and it just hasn't until they realize how old the rest of the guys were. So it just, I don't have any thoughts on him. I don't think Rico Dowdle is like a buy low or somebody who's going to move up, say next year. I don't think he's going to be a guy people will be drafting with confidence.
Yeah.
Okay, so anybody else we want to move into this tier?
The tier 6, no. Does Tank Bigsby belong in that tier?
I don't think so. We can move him out. There's the tiers get hard because there's some rookies that aren't on the list yet that we should probably talk about,
Yeah.
and that kind of
I
probably
mean,
goes.
if Trey Benson is in this tier, I know I like what I've seen from Ray Davis.
Yeah, so him, Blake Corum, especially for anybody who's fading Kyron Williams, like Blake Corum would be in this tier. Isaac Guerendo and Jordan Mason. I loved Isaac Guerendo. I mean, I talked about him before the offseason. He's had some moments. He has not scored the touchdowns because he's laid down twice on the 1 yard line, and he runs totally different than Jordan Mason. But like, you put Isaac Guerendo in space, he hits like the nitrous button, and is the fastest man on earth. So
Yeah.
I think he's very interesting. I think he'll be better than Jordan Mason. I think Jordan Mason is just a grinder.
Yeah.
And
good RB.
Sucked in the red zone this year. Like his production came for like first 2 weeks. Everybody was really excited about him. And then like he couldn't score a touchdown. Isaac Guerendo can, do the house call. I think he's very exciting. I think he belongs in this tier long term. If he's the guy for Christian McCaffrey's backup, or if Christian McCaffrey moves on, I think Guerendo could be a guy who ends up in the Shanahan offense, getting schemed up to do house calls that we've seen with Christian McCaffrey. So I like Guerendo a lot.
I apologize if I spelled that name incorrectly.
I think there's another R.
No, just one R in Guerendo.
Is it just R? One R?
Yep, you had it right.
Oh.
So
apologies. But Jalen Wright, I think, also would be here when he has gotten time for the Dolphins. He's been explosive. Yeah. Tyler Algier, I think you really could argue him in tier 5 just if Bijan goes down. We've seen him have a 1,000-yard season already. And
JMO, tier 5 for Algier?
I wouldn't put him in tier 5, but I think you could argue it, is all I'm saying. To be clear.
I'd probably have him at 6, but he'd be at the end of tier 5, early tier 6, just because of what happens if Bijan's gone. So the only like the Broncos running backs, they have Leo McLaughlin and Audric Estime. I don't like either of them. I don't know if we need to talk about them because we obviously don't like Javonte. Like, is any of those guys going to step up?
I think they've been brought up as much as they need to be. Estime is interesting, but I want to see him get more than like 5 carries.
Yeah. And the only other guy would be Braylon Allen.
Yeah.
If you think like long-term Jets get a little bit better, Breece Hall goes down. Like, he's had some exciting moments. He doesn't have any fantasy production, but it seemed like he looked decent when he's been in there.
Mm-hmm.
So should we add Braylon Allen?
I think so.
I would. It just ends up this tier of rookie RB2s that end up fitting in and kind of being productive.
So Aaron Jones and the boys?
Pretty much. Aaron Jones, like, his fantasy stats look good because he's gotten some touchdowns. But this second half of the season, he's got the yips as far as fumbling goes. He had 2 fumbles this past game. Got benched for a minute. Got put in timeout before getting put back in. Yeah. And we've seen it with Aaron Jones. Like, he starts off hot, season goes along, he gets hit, and it just, like, things get really tough for him. So, and he's an older back too.
Yeah. Oh, I guess the name Kamani Vidal as well, maybe.
He is not looking good.
No, but he'll have more of a chance with Dobbins on IR.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put him in tier 6, but
he'd probably be the last guy. Other than that, I'm not sure who else there is to bring up outside of like
Nick Chubb, Jerome Ford, Austin Eckler would be the other names, but I don't personally care anymore, unfortunately. I think it's over.
And I don't necessarily think that this is tier 7. I think these are the names that were left over.
Yeah, I'd say so too. Eat your Thanksgiving leftovers, by the way. They're going to be bad by now if they aren't already.
Oh, yeah, unless you froze something. But, God, turkey's terrible when you eat it fresh. How bad must it be frozen? All right.
Right?
So we are left with tier 6, Zaron Jones, Trey Benson, Rashad White, Travis Etienne, Jalen Warren, Ray Davis, Isaac Orendo, Jalen Wright, Tyler Algier, and Braylon Allen. Oh, amen, David. Kendre Miller would be nice if he would stay healthy.
We talked about Kamara already. If he's saying we didn't,
Yeah, we hit Kamara. Kamara's up in what, tier 3?
I think 3.
Yep.
Yep, there he is.
So I think that's about it for all the running backs, unless you're picking like Justice Hill and all those guys.
No.
But I think the
No.
guys
No.
that need to be taken care of have been named and put on the list.
All right. Well,
You have comments too.
Okay, let's hit some comments because there's actually 2 other topics I kind of wanted to hit on. As long as you guys have time, or you need to rush out of here.
No?
No, we are good.
All right.
Go in reverse orders. Thank you guys for holding on for a little bit in some cases.
J Stacks.
Yeah. Starting 2 of Kareem Hunt, Kamani Vidal, Tyjae Spears, or Cam Akers. And there's Corum, Pat Taylor, and Travis Homer. Travis Homer. Wow, what a name.
Jeez.
Godspeed to you, my friend.
I would say, God, you're 10-3. Okay, he's 10-3. It's a 12-man PPR, so you're in the playoffs. I hope. Hope this isn't your first week in the playoffs. I would lean Kareem Hunt as Pacheco gets more play. Oh God. Pollard's playing, so no Spears.
I don't mean to interfere, but I would take one more shot on Kamani Vidal. Chargers did not run many plays at all. They ran like 43. I know he didn't do great, but Hassan Haskins had a fumble right out of the gate. Gus Edwards sucked. Like Vidal had a 16-yard run. He looked fine, like not great, but the Chargers didn't run many plays last week, and I think that might be part of it if you're just looking for a body to get some touches. So,
So Hunt, Vidal are our choices?
Yeah, Corum is the next man up there, especially with a good matchup.
All right. I hope that helps, J Stacks.
Okay. Then we have IDP Jets question 2. Jamie good with CJ Mosley back.
I don't think so. I don't think he's toast.
Yeah.
If you're in a Dynasty IDP, definitely keep Sherwood. I liked what he brought this year. I mean, I am a huge CJ fan.
Yeah.
But he's not getting younger. Yeah. And Sherwood was, I don't know, brought in to, replace him eventually.
I definitely wouldn't start Sherwood this week, assuming you're not in Bipocalypse hell. But there's something there. And dynasty wise, he's a free agent. He'll get signed to a non-negligible contract this offseason.
All right.
Other comments? I think from Gary. I think we really hit most of those guys.
Yeah, your CMC shares are all broken. Start hitting up our later tiers. You might be able to get somebody pretty cheap, Gare. I'm not sure how much you like trading, though. Man, the Baltimore backups. Keaton Mitchell is exciting, but I don't think he's ever going to be able to handle a workload in the NFL.
Yeah.
I hope he can. And Justice Hill is a good dump-off guy, but I don't know. Long-term, I don't have a lot of faith in him.
Yeah.
I think Mitchell would be worth like a late-round flyer if you've got like an extra like late-round draft pick that you don't mind just like trying and seeing you might hit. I think Keaton Mitchell will be more of a next-year thing. We'll see how long Derrick Henry lasts, but, I mean, Thunder and Lightning with that. I mean, Keaton Mitchell is fast, has home run ability, before he got hurt looked really good, but the ACL injury was a bad one. So more of a next year thing, because I don't think he's even played this year. But he's worth a flyer. I mean, if you're going to miss, might as well miss on somebody who you've seen flash before.
Yep.
Fair
The
enough.
last question we have is a fun one.
Oh.
From David. Thank you for holding on. Ashton Genty. So I know someone who I brought up earlier, but he's the real deal. He's freaking phenomenal. And I think right now I would put him as my dynasty running back. 7 or 8. I think 7 is where I'd end up having him.
So you would be putting him in tier 2?
Yeah. I think he's that good. I know it mentions here a Braylon or Charbonnet thing, but if he goes anywhere, he's not the number 2. There's the only way that happens is if he goes to Atlanta, Philly, and that's it, really. Then Detroit's different, but if they take another running back in the first round, that'd be crazy.
That would be crazy.
But yeah, he's not Bijan as a prospect, just he doesn't have the pass catching on film. Not nearly as dynamic there, but again, on film, he could be that, but I think now he's shown just as much, if not more, than Brees and Kenneth Walker did. So.
Okay. Any other comments, sir?
No, I think that's all of them. I will say, as of now, Ashton Genty, even in Superflex leagues, is, I think, the clear 101.
Sounds good.
Yes, over Travis Hunter.
All right. So the last 2 things I did want to talk about, if we have some time, maybe we'll just hit one. Let's start with Trevor Lawrence. What are your thoughts on the suspension and the whole situation? Joe, I want to hear what you have to think about.
I think it's reasonable for sure. I think it was a kill shot. So, and it's not it would be one thing if it was the first instance. Yeah, David says, this is a great running back class. Mm-hmm. Genty's up there, but I think there's a guy like Woody Marks is probably a top 100 pick, and he might be running back 15 in this class. It's a great running back class. Azeez Al-Shaair has shown a lot of dirty plays, or I think last week he hit someone 5 yards out of bounds. There have been a lot of instances. It's fair. Him making himself out to be a villain, sure. But, yeah.
Jameson, you're on the same page?
For the most part, I don't like, if you're going to compare him to the rest of the field, probably 3 games was a bit much. Like, it's I think it's very hard. Like, it seemed intentional, and like I've seen him play other games, and he's one of the more aggressive linebackers in the league. Like, he's done some shady stuff so it's not surprising to see it. I think 3 games is a bit much compared to some of the other stuff we see weekly that gets ignored or just gets fined. It seems like he was just made an example of. But at the same time, these quarterbacks, we just saw it last week with Caleb Williams, who was going out of bounds, faked going out of bounds, but he wasn't Patrick Mahomes, so he gets hit. And then, like, we're hitting the quarterback, like, that's a no-no. I mean, these guys are set up to fail, and that's the other problem with it. I think Shazier, what he did was more intentional. But, like, a lot of these running backs who get hit, you can't stop momentum, and I think it goes against them, and that's the other problem that we have. Like, if it was any other running back or linebacker who hit a quarterback like that, they'd probably only get 1 game, but Shazier, I think, just getting made an example of. As much as I hated the play, I just don't know what else you can do with these guys. That's the other problem.
Now, I see what David wrote, and I actually was going to suggest the same thing, David. Is it time to get away from having the QB slide rule? Once you cross the line of scrimmage, aren't you just a running back at that point? If you want to this is my big issue. you can't treat all quarterbacks as the same. And we sort of treat everybody like they are a Bryce Young, right? A small quarterback who's going to get murdered by these terrible defensive players. But as somebody who's a Jets fan and watches what Josh Allen does as a QB, where Josh Allen will lower his shoulder and run over people constantly, and then suddenly slide and cry when he gets hit, I think you have to pick a lane. You have to pick a lane. Do quarterbacks, are they dainty little runners who need to be protected at all costs? Or are they allowed to stiff arm and truck people, fake going out of bounds, come back in for a few extra? And I think as I go over this in my head, the only way to get rid of this is to say, once you cross the line of scrimmage, you are now a runner. And you're on your own. If you don't want to get hit, fall to the ground and give yourself up. But you are not protected by any special set of rules that are good. Because, listen, yes, Aziz, you kind of saw him line it up, put his elbow out. It was clear. But there are plenty of calls. And you can't convince me as a linebacker or a safety is running top speed at a guy, and at the last second, they fall down. I don't know what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
The other problem with it is guys like Anthony Richardson and Lamar Jackson. If the other running or quarterbacks got hit the way that they do because they are running quarterbacks, it'd be a flag every time. There's a different grading scale. Josh Allen is kind of in that tier. Like sometimes he gets called for stuff, but we just relate it to Patrick Mahomes doing the fake slide thing, which I think that totally sucks. But if other guys got hit,
well, hold on, Mahomes has never done a fake slide.
Yeah,
he goes out of bounds. Pickett was the one in college who did that goddamn fake slide.
Yeah, well, the fake
out of bounds thing last week was just a weird juke because Mahomes isn't the most functional athlete.
But the minute, if a wide receiver is kind of on the edge and if he gets hit out of bounds, that's fine. But the minute a quarterback gets touched, it's a flag. You're not supposed to hit out of bounds, but when a running back and a wide receiver are kind of close and they get pushed out, it's okay. But it's like I said, there's definitely a different grading scale for guys like Lamar, Anthony Richardson. I mean, Anthony Richardson has been smoked so many times that if it was any other quarterback, it'd been flagged. Lamar Jackson gets tackled every week, just normal tackled. If a quarterback that wasn't Lamar got normal tackled, it'd be a flag. They'd be sent to prison for 15 years, Guantanamo Bay. That's
with Travis Etienne.
Yeah, that's exactly where they'd go. So it's just it's a different grading scale, and that's the problem that I think kind of gets overlooked.
Yeah, some little signal, or maybe just change their jersey. And I am all for player safety. I actually have a real issue when I watch players try to hurt each other. You're all part of a fraternity, and I know we are bloodthirsty as fans, but there's a big difference between trying to tackle somebody and stop them, such as Cooper DeJean's beautiful hit on Derrick Henry last week where he planted him, versus Aziz trying to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
And that's what they're trying to get out of the game, and I think it has worked. But I just think the QB slide thing, you created a whole issue that doesn't need to be an issue.
Yeah. The other thing part of it is quarterbacks in the pocket. If they get pushed down, that's a flag. But if Lamar Jackson gets tackled, that's fine because he's a runner, a running quarterback. So you see a guy Jared Goff, who doesn't run, who you never see him on the run. If he's in the pocket and he gets pushed backwards while he's thrown, he's, that's roughing the passer. I know it's different, but at the same time, it just depends what kind of quarterback you are. You're set up for different rules. If Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen get pushed while they're throwing the ball in the pocket, they're not going to get called. But if a statue quarterback who gets hit, and falls backwards, that's a penalty. So it's just, that's the other issue with it. I hate using the term soft because I think, as the world grows and all that stuff, we should change with it. But you just rules are backwards, and they obviously lean towards guys who don't run compared to running quarterbacks. That's the other issue.
Yep.
All right, last topic, and this doesn't have to be a long one, gentlemen. What
Then
do
a couple
we think?
comments after.
Oh, what about all of these college brawls last weekend? I have to say, I don't understand what is going on. I don't understand how a head coach of a major college program doesn't stop his players from acting like idiots. And I'm talking about both sides. If we're just doing the Michigan, Ohio State, how can a coach of a major college program allow the athletes to rub your opponent's face in a loss or react so terribly to go out and fight the people who are rubbing your face in it? Where is the control of these players? And not only do I think it is dangerous, because watching that live video of what happened in the Michigan game, it's very scary. But I also think it portrays college athletes and predominantly a lot of African American athletes in a very negative way on national TV. And you need to have control of your team.
Yeah, I agree on that because for the flag planting thing, like when they plant a flag, what do you expect? Like you don't expect them to retaliate? I would expect them to retaliate, just like the Jaguars players retaliated when Trevor Lawrence got hit. Like they are defending their, I guess you want to call it territory or whatever you want to talk about it. So, I mean, I don't understand planting a flag and then not expecting anything to happen as a repercussion. So it just doesn't
At
make
the
a whole
same
lot of
time,
sense. But
don't get your ass kicked by your rival 4 years in a row. And if you do,
yeah,
realize you're not as good as them. But
it's gotten a little too far. But I just some of the celebrations and stuff have gotten. I think guys like shooting guns and stuff's a little goofy, but it's I don't understand it. I'm not trying to be like rude or anything like that, but I think some of it. I think people should be able to celebrate, but all the taunting and stuff, and then when somebody retaliates, the bully picks, and then when somebody retaliates, person who retaliates, the one that gets in trouble. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But
yeah.
just my thoughts.
Joe, anything to add?
Grow up. These guys need to grow up, and the coaches mostly need to grow up, frankly.
Yeah, I was really disappointed in the coaches
Yeah.
to see 6 different teams have this happen. Right? I mean, 3 games, 6 teams.
Yeah.
And nobody has control over their players. Man, that's a bad look. It's a bad look. All right. If there's nothing else. Oh, no, you had some comments.
Darren Worley for the Titans had 17 tackles last week. It was a game script thing. He's mostly a free safety. Don't expect it to happen again. There's not a Stills in LA. I assume that's Dante Stills, the D tackle for Arizona. Super interesting in the D tackle league. His pass rush metrics are incredible, but part-time player. If you're not in a DT league, not interested. And then,
all right, J Stack says, last game of the season, I'm in first place. Drafted heavy at wide receiver. Is supposed to trade Rice for running back, J.K. Hurt, and B-Rob on bye.
Thoughts and prayers.
Yep.
This is a very rough week. Probably a week you probably needed to plan like 2 or 3 weeks ago with all everybody on bye, especially in Superflex leagues. Like I've lost both my quarterbacks this week. Picked up Drew Lock, Trey Lance, and Aiden O'Connell. I was lucky enough to hit on 2 of them to replace them, but it's a rough week, especially the biggest time of the year when you need your guys the most.
Is that the last comment, sir?
It is.
All right, it is time for tags where we can share any final thoughts. Let everyone know where they can find us. Joe?
You can find me at Jolo63 on Blue Sky and X, and where my Starts at IDP article just published on idpplus.com.
All right, Jameson.
Over on the Twitter machine at Jameson Rules, over on the Blue Sky as well. I got the DFS show Sunday with Joel Worth over at IDP Plus, trying to win you some money. Other than that, that is all I've got. Hoping Juan Soto ends up with the Red Sox. You'll hear about that on the Twitter machine when that happens. But other than that, that's all I got.
Please.
Are you going to bet on him to hit a home run when we go see the Pirates play this year?
I will pull out the 401k, take the penalty, and put it all on Juan Soto to hit a home run. So.
All right. Well, I
do like Tarheeb still for the Chargers, by the way. Sorry. Thank you for the clarification. Chargers.
Oh, wait. I can't even point to mine. I'm at JJ Wenner on Blue Sky, F Twitter. Thank you to everybody who joined us tonight on the stream. Thank you, Joe Jameson, for all of your work. Make sure you tune in next week to the All Out Blitz with Doug Orth as we dive into the film and analytics from week 14. And then come back on Thursday for another live Rod Pod. So from all of us to all of you, be safe, be well. And as always, boat drinks, my friends. Boat drinks.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.